Hey there, it's Christy, Podcast Rescue and Team Podcast, and guess what it is? It's today, the 20th day of my Facebook Live challenge. So 20 out of 30 days are now behind us, because at this point, I could end this broadcast and say, I came on Facebook Live for 20 days in a row, but I wouldn't have given you any value. And so that's not acceptable to me. So I want to make sure I do that on every single show. And I just wanted to thank those of you that have been following along and listening and jumping in and watching this later and commenting. Thank you so much for doing that. It means the world to me that you are actually participating in this event with me and hopefully learning something along the way that will help you in your podcast journey. What I'm going to talk to you today about is not podcast specific, because it can happen in any aspect of your life, but it comes into play a lot for podcasters, and it's called imposter syndrome. And hopefully the minute I say it, you know automatically exactly what I'm talking about. It is that voice that is inside your head that questions everything you do and says, why are you doing this? Who's listening to you? Who are you to do this? You know, there's people that are already doing this that are way smarter than you, or that are way further down the road in their journey than you are. There are people that are better at doing it than you are, and they're already doing it. So there's really not even any need for you to show up. The voice is constantly there, and I hate to say it, but it seems that it's part of the human condition, and we are all facing at different points in our journey imposter syndrome. Maybe there are a few people that are immune from it, the people that have maybe they have the biggest egos in the world, or they're completely narcissistic. They might not deal with imposter syndrome, or maybe they do and they just really are much better at covering it than the rest of us. But for everyone else that I know, you're going to encounter imposter syndrome. It comes into play in so many aspects of our lives, and it's just something that we have to get better at dealing with. I'll give you an example. For what I'm doing here, I'm trying to help podcasters and help podcasters actually have a successful podcast that meets whatever goals they set out for their podcast. And podcasts can meet tons of different goals. Some people want to monetize. Some people want to write a book. Some people want to build their audience. Some people just want to meet other people that are important in their network. These are all valid reasons for building a podcast. Some people might just want to have it as their funnel for their marketing channel. Some people might want to build their email list. I mean, there's a ton of different reasons. Other people, they've had a personal experience with something that has basically made them want to change the world or start a movement. And that's another very valid reason to start a podcast. But if your podcast doesn't meet that goal, then it won't last and it won't be sustainable. And so what I'm doing is trying to help people do podcasting in the messy middle part of it. But here's the thing. There are really big names in the podcasting niche. There's the John Lee Dumases. There's the Amy Porterfields. There's the Pat Flynn's. There's some really, really, really big names. And these are not just podcaster people, they are marketing people, and they're telling people how to start a podcast and how to launch a podcast. Why would there be a need for little old me to even jump in and say anything about podcasting? So I deal with podcast imposter syndrome all the time, and it happens partly because I think the worst in many things about myself. And I think what happens with all of us is we don't realize that we have probably already been harder on ourselves and more critical of ourselves than anyone is ever going to be. Now, I will tell you, I know the online space can be very brutal, and there are trolls and there are people out there that are going to just rip you from one end to the other. But by and large, the majority of people are not going to be nearly as hard on you as you are of yourself. Now, part of the reason I'm doing this Facebook challenge is because I hate getting on video. I don't like the way I look. I would love to be looking like a model, looking like someone that is just all made up and ready to go from the moment they get out of bed in the morning, and they're all beautifully dressed and that sort of thing. But unfortunately, that's just not me. In fact, I was getting ready. This morning I have been covered up with meetings, and appointments that I had, and I had been working all morning. And the interesting thing is I was getting ready to go and do this live stream, and I was like, oh, Christy, you look terrible. I mean, I've had a shower, but out of the shower, there was no makeup. My rosacea's out of control. I'm not feeling like I look presentable at all. But you know what? I've been working all morning. I've been on the phone call with people that are interested in being clients. I've been on on phone calls with people that are clients, and it's one of those things that it was sort of not being integrity for me to go and make up just for this live stream. Because once I get off this live stream, I'm going to jump back in. I've got 2 more shows I've got to edit today. I'm trying to do some other things, trying to reach out to some advertisers, trying to do all these different things that I do that are part of my normal life. And to go and now put on makeup and get all dressed up just to come here and present myself in a way that so I won't be as insecure about myself is really not being in integrity and not being true to what I'm talking about with the imposter syndrome, because I have it. I have it about all of the above. With podcasts, you have it about everything though. You have it about your voice, and you go back and you scrutinize your audio and you think, my voice is so annoying to listen to. I'm too northern. I'm too southern. I'm too, I don't speak well enough. My vocal quality is awful. You just brutalize yourself by over scrutinizing everything that you do. Then you look at your artwork and you say, oh, my artwork's terrible. I created that, but I'm not a graphic designer. I'm creative. I didn't have the budget to go get a designer. Then you look at your blog posts. I'm not right, or I don't know if I did this. I'm doing my show notes right. Do it the way it should be done. Everything out there we question. And it all gets in the way of what our real message is, because our real message is just show up and contribute to the world. And in this day and age, whenever so many conversations along the national narrative are negative and they're hurtful and they're divisive, for podcasters to be able to rise up and say, I have a positive message and I'm drawing people in support and I'm drawing people to me versus pushing them away. And we're creating space for people that may not already have a space out there in the world. All of these things are happening through podcasting, and you're contributing to them. And so many times I see that if we don't counteract that imposter syndrome, it pushes our launches back. It pushes our courses back. It pushes our mastermind meetings back that we want to have with people. It pushes back every single thing that we want to do because we are afraid to put ourselves out there. We're afraid we're going to have rejection. We're afraid we're going to have, maybe even trolls or haters. And it's funny because haters are so common in the online space or even in the podcasting space. And what you have to realize is that when you get your first haters, it's a compliment, because that means you're getting on people's radar, and you're giving them a reason to hate you because you've put them to shame, and they're attacking you because it makes them feel better. Now, it's a pitiful situation that's where we are in society, that people will take the time to really attack you so that they feel better, and they'll waste their time doing that rather than trying to feel better about themselves. But the imposter syndrome feeds off that sort of thing. The imposter syndrome will shut you down if you don't get a handle on it. So there's several things you can do to deal with imposter syndrome. For me, part of what I'm doing is trying to cultivate a habit where I just continue to show up and I just continue to give. And that's what the live streams are about. The live streams are about proving to myself that for 30 days I can do a Facebook Live. Because you know what? If I can do a Facebook Live and incorporate that for 30 days into my life, and then I probably am going to continue, because now I'm going to be speaking at PodFest in Orlando in February, which is a wonderful podcast conference. If you haven't been there, you definitely should invest. If you're only going to one podcasting conference this year, go to PodFest in Orlando. It's February 8th through the 10th. I'm going to be doing a session there on live streaming, and you'll see all my things that I'm doing for live streaming, and you'll see how it's impacted my engagement, what it's done for me on social media, and those sorts of things. But it's one of those things that if I can prove to myself, because that's really who I'm trying to prove things to. I'm not trying to prove things to you. But if I can prove it to myself that I can do this for 30 days or more, then I can also prove to myself that maybe I can exercise for 30 days, or maybe I can make it a point of reaching out to my audience for 30 days or more. I mean, all of these things that I want to do on top of live streaming are built on showing up daily and showing up again and again and again when it's not convenient. when life isn't perfect, whenever you don't feel perfect, and whenever you feel like you're a failure or you feel like you're not getting what you need. Just understand podcasting is an emotional thing, and imposter syndrome plays into that emotion. It plays into all the worst fears and all the things that we truly believe or think we believe about ourselves. And so many times it's a matter of reprogramming our mind. Affirmations are a great way to help you overcome and just break the cycle of negativity that your mind is telling yourself. Give yourself affirmations that you are enough, that you are adequate, that you are worthy, that you are important, that it is important to other people if you show up in the world. Now, it's funny because even with live streaming, it's very interesting because it is such a positive and affirming thing when people show up on a live stream and they stay and they listen and they interact and they're like, oh, Christy, good point. Oh, you're so helpful. Man, you could eat that for every meal of the day and be sustained for life. But it's harder when you get on and you do a live stream and nobody's gotten on, or somebody gets on and they get right back off. But you know what? In the end of the day, it doesn't matter if a week from now, if 20 people have seen this live stream, or if 150 or 250 or 500 people have seen this live stream. You know what's important? That maybe one person got what they needed from it. That maybe one person said, you know what? I can continue on. I can carry on. I can do this because of this live stream. Because I'm showing up in my imperfection. I'm showing up with not the greatest confidence about myself and the things that I present to the world. But you know what? I'm doing it anyway because it's my time of day to do that. It's my time where I've committed to, I'm going to do it, and then I'm going to jump back into my work, and I'm going to get back to work. And the beauty of what I do is that I can show up to work this way every single day, looking like this and it not affect my income. Now, if I was at a workplace, I've worked, 25 years in jobs where I had to show up and make up and dress up and, all that and show up every day like that. And I'm at a very different place right now, but it's very interesting because when you don't have that support of the office or the corporate environment or whatever, it gives you the grounds to let imposter syndrome take a bigger footprint in your life than it should. So if you're dealing with imposter syndrome, some affirmations, maybe even some people that are really needing to sort of control your mind and control the messages that you are sort of on, almost like on a play loop or something, telling yourself, I can't do stressed out about this. I find that when I have that anxiety as a small business owner, that almost every single meditation helps. Just getting mind count and that fear, self-talk in its place to say, don't believe that. That is not true. Look at all these other things that are true versus what your mind is telling you is not the whole picture of all the things that you can't do, all the inadequacies that you have, how you're different than someone else. No. I'm no different than anyone. I'm no different than Amy Porterfield. I'm no different than a lot different than Pat Flynn physically. But I mean, the thing is, these people show up every day and they keep doing it. But you know what? I'm showing up too, and I'm doing exactly what I'm supposed to be doing. So you are too, but you're showing up to your podcast audience. You're showing up to your listeners. You're showing up to your family. You're showing up to your friends. You're showing up to your obligations in your life. And even when you don't feel like you're doing a great job of it, I've had seems like from last weekend through